that maybe they'll go out and work harder and so forth. No, they're already working harder. It's about this view that people, are in hammocks. That is a consistent view. I had one person when we were talking about the diaper bank and funding for the diaper bank and the cost of diapers, said, if you can't afford diapers, you shouldn't have children. I mean, that is the level of conversation with some people. Not all, but with some people. Oh.
I do want to ask you to speak on something. I'm getting ready to vote this year, and I have to say sometimes I struggle with the Democratic Party.
Sure.
And I struggle with the Democratic Party because, and I hear it a lot from our communities of color, is that we don't feel like we have folks who are willing to fight as hard as the Republicans for their constituents. And one of the things that, an argument that can be made that we hear all the time is we don't have the money. But the issue, as you rightfully pointed out, this is, for some people it's a moral argument, and for some people you can make you have to make an economic argument. And for people of color especially, money is always spent to incarcerate us, to treat us, to put us in a school to prison pipeline. So the money is always there to do those things.
Sure.
So how do we challenge the Democratic Party? How will you plan to challenge the Democratic Party to make that argument consistently? Because the Republicans will always come and say there is no money, and they will always find money to do other things. But how do we challenge the Democratic Party to continue to make that argument and to make that fight? Because so many of the people that are struggling as a result of inaction is people and communities of color. I think there's a 90% absenteeism. I think I'm not sure if it's 90% or it's close to 90%, but there's an absentee 90% or close to that in some of the public schools in New Haven. We know that the test scores are really very bad, and going back to Commissioner Bai about the fact that when parents are stressed, they just don't have the wherewithal to do that. So our communities are really struggling, and there is an outreach to communities of color, but I have to say, as a person of color, I do struggle given that the Democratic Party has had the House, the Senate, and the White House. So how do you speak to that?
And I'll address that, piece at the end. We exist in look, for me, this whole effort is about the cost of living. It's the economic argument. There are lots of things out there that people care about. But the focus that I have had, and this is not just for this, election, I've been talking about cost of living and how we put money back in people's pockets. That's why I'm there with the child tax credit, dealing with the SNAP program, dealing with the WIC program, equal pay for equal work. Men and women in the same job deserve the same pay. It is about how we provide people the opportunity for economic security, that I think is a primary responsibility, at least for me, and focusing in on children and families. But you are looking at it, if you think about what happened at the beginning of last year with the American Rescue's Plan, okay? There were no vaccines, nothing, the distribution was non-existent, etc. That all occurred under a new president, a Democratic president, who said that we were going to do this. Restaurants were going under, schools were going under, child care was going under. Child care was collapsing in this country. And so you saw $1 trillion being spent. This was the tax credit was in there, the $1,400 payment was in there for families. What we did with food, etc. And we started these efforts. Why? Because that's what's affecting families. And that bill was passed with only Democrats. Only Democrats. So there is a reversal of that view that, you know, the federal largesse benefits, you know, the wealthiest and the biggest corporations. That has been turned around. Yes, the bipartisan infrastructure bill was bipartisan. The 13 Republicans voted. Okay. The Inflation Reduction Act, not one Democrat, not one Republican. They listened to the pharmaceutical companies because the pharmaceutical companies did not want us to be able to negotiate the price of prescription drugs. If you lower the price of prescription drugs, who are the beneficiaries? If you cap the cost of health care at only 8% of income, who does that help? If you lower the price of energy, deal with rebates, etc., for people, you know, etc. If you invest in education, and I was with Randy Weingarten yesterday about what we need to do, you know, the resources for kids. The schools were shuttered to keep them open, to try to get kids back in track. The work that we did, and I'm going to tell you one thing about this food piece here. I can't tell you the fight we had with the Republicans to extend the summer program. And we only got it until September. And the institution, you got 435 members of the House. To pass any piece of legislation, you need to have 218 votes. The Democratic side of that is a 4-seat majority. That's all we have. You go to the Senate, it's 50-50. We operate on numbers. That in the Build Back Better, which was supposed to be Build Back Better, extension of the child tax credit, yes, Joe Manchin, who I had many conversations with, was opposed, but there was not one single Republican to say yes. All we needed was 2, and we could have done it. The increase in child care in Build Back Better, the increase in education, the numbers are not there, you can't pass the bill. But I gotta tell you, there are a whole hell of a lot of my Republican colleagues out on the stump taking pictures at child care places, at bridges, and so forth, because, you know, because it's the right thing to do, to fund these efforts. So I'm not always in sync with what my own party does. I have fought back on a whole variety of issues. Look, I'm angry that we didn't get what we started out as permanency on the child tax credit. Then they said it was going to be 5 years, and then 3 years. And then it wound up being for a year. Was I going to take the ball and go home? Hell no. I'm going to get the child tax credit for the year and move to fight another day. And that's the same with some of these other things. Can we put a cap on insulin? We wanted to do it for everyone, Georgia. Republicans said no for everyone. We could just do seniors. Doing seniors is great. Doing seniors is great. Yeah. The same with a $2,000 a cap on out-of-pocket costs for health care. It's only for seniors because they wouldn't vote for it. I'll give you another. The NRA, they listen to the NRA. We can't even get a vote on raising the age of the purchase of an assault weapon from 18 to 21 years old. And you know that this is an issue that faces the communities of color with the violence in our streets today. So, you know, we don't always stand up and make the fight that we should. I won't say that for myself because I'll take them on wherever they are. I don't care. That's why I said what I said about the child tax credit at the end of this year. You know.
So, in addition to the child tax credit, Rosa, I'm going to make a personal plea that not just the child tax credit, but federal funding for child care.
Yes. Oh God. Yes.
Nothing should pass